I think for our folks who have video on this, pretty graphic representation of what the federal surge has done to Minnesota. One aspect of it, we know the things you see on TV. We understand about the with Alex and Renee's killing, with the other shootings, with all the things that are happening. We've covered, and I'm grateful to all of you, covered extensively the disruptions to our schools, to our hospitals. I think one that's on here, and we were just saying some of the heart and soul of our communities is our food and hospitality and restaurant industry. You're going to hear from Patty, Saeed, you'll hear from Commissioner Verelik, from Deed, what the impact of it is. Well, the impact is pretty clear right here. This place should be hopping. This place should be full. We should have the 4 employees that would be working this kitchen be working here. They're not, which the trickle-down effect of that is, how do they make rent? How do they pay for food? How do they do the things they need to do? And so I think it's been clear over the last nearly 3 months now that we are long past this being anything about immigration. Again, I'm grateful for the great reporting that's been done. Of all the people that have been detained by ICE, 14% fall into that worst of the worst. Those are the people that we know about. We're seeing continuous stories about the conditions at the Whipple building and others, the horrific stories of Liam and the number of children that have spiked up that are in detention, all in the name of making our communities safer, none of which is true. We're here today to highlight the economic impact, and this is going to take some time as it shakes out, and it will be an ongoing, rolling hit that is happening to these businesses. And Saeed is just mentioning, we just want to get back to do what we do best, normal, cook food for our neighbors, make some money, and go on about our lives. The incredible disruption that has been caused by what can only be described as a federal retribution campaign, and I say that because I'm not searching for words. That's exactly what the President of the United States called it, a retribution campaign against Minnesota. And we've seen it against our neighbors. We've seen the terror in the streets. We've seen the violence in our streets. We're seeing the economic destruction of this. And then we're seeing day in and day out the impact across state government. At the very time we're putting people at risk, we're making it more difficult for people to get health care. We're making it more difficult to have safety in where they take their children for child care. So we're continuing to make the case that, that Minnesota has stood up for their neighbors, that Minnesota has asked that this surge of folks leave. I spoke with Tom Holman yesterday. I spoke with Susie Walz, the President and Chief of Staff, this morning. We're very much in a trust but verify mode, but it's my expectation, and we will hear more from them, I think, in the next day or so, that we are talking days, not weeks and months of this occupation, and it's an expectation that we will continue to get cooperation on joint investigations of the crimes that were committed or potentially committed against Minnesotans, and then a backing off of the unprecedented. What happened when they said this retribution campaign, the very unqualified cabinet secretaries all took that as free rein to come to Minnesota and bring retribution to us. So if you were the Department of Transportation, you did it. If you were the Ag Department, you did it. If you were DHS, you did it. If you're Dr. Oz, you did it. If you're O'Neill, you did it. All of them came to get in the news, and all of them came in all aspects of whether it was holding money, whether it was trying to file charges against people, or things that might not seem like they would be that impactful, data request. Millions and millions of pages of data request, which is fine by me. We do it in Minnesota, but they don't even have any people working at these agencies, so they request the data and they don't go anywhere. The people who are the attorneys that should actually be prosecuting on ICE cases, the lead prosecutor quit yesterday. Fraud is a long forgotten thing for everybody except me. And people in Minnesota who know we need to prosecute it and do what's right. The federal government lost all their prosecutors. The federal government sent us no one who's an expert in fraud prevention or fraud discovery or fraud prosecution. They sent untrained people on the streets to push people down or to try and follow teachers home. Those things are not making anybody better. It's certainly not making America great again. And here in Minnesota, we're here today to make the case that this needs to end, but more importantly, Minnesota's going to do what we've seen our neighbors do on the streets. Stand up for each other, try and make things better for each other. I'm going to turn this over to Commissioner Varelek here to talk a little bit about this, but I would preview for all of you as we get ready to move into the legislative session. We're working with our partners. We're listening to people like Patty who are telling us this is what we need, and we, I think here later this week, or we'll try and get something out, put a package of relief together, especially focused around businesses. Very much we had to do this during COVID. COVID was something that we couldn't control. This is an entirely man-made and avoidable catastrophe that's fell on these businesses. But I think it's still important for us to put something together to make sure that they get back on their feet. These are resilient folks. These are entrepreneurs. They know how to make things work. But what has been brought upon them without a little bit of help is going to be very difficult. And the sad part about this is if, again, totally avoidable, totally should not have happened and had nothing to do with immigration, ends up putting businesses out of work or out of business, that is totally unacceptable. So we're going to continue to push on this. We're continuing to gather the data. Grateful for the partners in the trade groups, the hospitality groups, and all of those that are helping us put that together. And then turning it to DEED, which was highly successful, highly targeted during COVID, about some of that relief. So I'll turn it over to DEED Commissioner Varelek.
Thanks so much, Governor. Thanks, everybody, for gathering today. Thank you, First Lady, Senator Clark, as well, for being here, along with the other speakers you will hear from in a moment. We're here at Malcolm Yards, which is such a happy place normally. It's obviously a beautiful space, and DEED takes special pride in this one because we have worked with Patty and her husband with grant funding over time as well to help develop this so that it can be the wonderful gathering place that it is. I think it's literally that table or that one where we've, Governor, don't tell anybody, but had Commissioner Happy Hour in this location. So I speak from experience in saying how wonderful are the offerings that are here. But we are here on this occasion for a much less happy reason, and that is to again highlight the impact of the federal actions and what it's doing to our hospitality industry, to the restaurant industry, but really retail and far beyond that. I've talked before about the fact that it's even having ripple effects on manufacturing and supply chains as well. It was a few weeks ago that we gathered at a restaurant in St. Paul to highlight some of these impacts, and then also the governor had made the declaration of Shop Local for the month of February as part of our Shop Local Stand Together effort. So in the intervening time, we have had lots of other local areas that have announced similar activities. We have had funds popping up to try to help businesses. So I would say all of that has been very worthwhile, has been very impactful, but also insufficient, because we continue to hear as well in the intervening time from so many business owners about the fact that the scale of the harm being inflicted by our own federal government is well beyond what they can handle. And so Patty, who owns this place, is one of the owners that we heard from, again, underscoring the fear on the part of employees who would otherwise be here helping to make this place operate, fear on the part of customers, and fear generally. So it is great news, of course, that the posture seems to have changed at the federal level towards their activities here in Minnesota. But as the governor said, it's a trust but verify situation. And frankly, the fear that has been sown, I haven't really noticed any reduction in that. And so the harms, the economic impact that we're seeing are as strong as ever. You're starting to see some estimates of how much that is. City of Minneapolis put out an estimate of, I think, $100 million in lost revenue since this began. DEED, our agency, works with the federal government, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, to put out numbers on unemployment, et cetera. Those, of course, have been delayed for a variety of reasons at the federal level, and it takes time for these impacts to filter into our numbers. We fully anticipate seeing them there, though, as well, because it's disheartening in that Minnesota has been outperforming on job growth on a year-over-year basis relative to the national average. But in this case, unfortunately, we have our own federal government who is impeding that progress. So we want to thank everyone who has generously opened their pocketbooks and helped to support businesses during this time of survival. We want to encourage everyone to continue doing that, and to hear just how urgent it is, I'll pass it over to Patty now to talk about what it looks like from her perspective. Thank you.
Thank you. Greetings. My name is Patty Wall, and I own the market at Malcolm Yards in the Prospect Park neighborhood of Minneapolis. For the past 4.5 years, our hall has housed 9 chef-owned and operated kitchens representing a multicultural blend of cuisines from around the world. I'm proud to support these entrepreneurs as they develop their culinary talents, create jobs, and grow their brands. My business is only one example of the opportunities the hospitality sector provides for individuals and communities across Minnesota. Today I'm here because that sector has become collateral damage during the current federal surge of enforcement activity, and the contributions we make to our neighborhoods are at serious risk. We were told the surge of federal agents was intended to make Minnesota safer. From the perspective of many restaurant operators, the result has instead been a climate of fear reminiscent of the early months of COVID, when people were afraid to leave their homes and normal community activities slowed dramatically. That same dynamic is now affecting restaurants, food halls, hotels, and event venues. Since the start of Operation Metro Surge, many restaurants have experienced sales declines of 50 to 80%. Staffing has been severely disrupted, either because legal workers are afraid to travel to work for fear of being falsely detained, or because reduced customer traffic has forced businesses to cut hours. Private events have been canceled or postponed, and many establishments have shortened operating hours simply to manage the drop in demand, per what you see today. Hospitality businesses operate on extremely narrow margins. A prolonged loss of this scale is not sustainable. Many operators are already struggling to meet rent and payroll obligations, and some are only a few payroll cycles away from layoffs or permanent closure. Some have already closed. If conditions do not change soon, many Minnesotans may find the neighborhood restaurants and gathering places they rely on are simply gone. Our industry is not asking for handouts. What we need most immediately is the restoration of normal life conditions so economic recovery can begin. A significant reduction in the federal operation or its conclusion would allow businesses, workers, and customers to return to normal routines and help stabilize an industry that supports thousands of loyal, hardworking Minnesotans. The sooner this disruption ends, the sooner we can return to doing what we do best, creating jobs, welcoming guests, and serving our communities in this great state of Minnesota. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you.
This is what happened when you're the last to speak. They mentioned all the points I want to talk about. So, honestly, as a small business owner, I wanted to give you a little bit of information about the restaurant industry. I don't know if you know, but the restaurant industry in Minnesota hosts up to 230,000 employees. We make sales about $24 billion. And our payroll is almost $7 billion. And the independent restaurants in the city is 75% of the total restaurants over here. So independent restaurants are struggling right now, and we are the big portion of the restaurant that exists in Minnesota, right? We are the infrastructure of our neighborhood. We are the livelihood of our neighborhood. And right now, honestly, we are struggling. The unfortunate part, people see us open, but they don't see how are we operating. I have an ask, of course, for the state. An immediate one, or the urgent one, is cash. We are almost out of cash. A lot of small businesses are out of cash. And to try to go and get grants or loan at this point, it's a long process. I would ask Governor if you have if you can help with at least the sales tax relief. Postpone it, right? We don't have, it's in 10 days. A lot of restaurants, I don't think, are able to pay the sales tax. And if they have to pay the sales tax, they might not be able to pay the rent or utilities. And so that's an immediate ask we are hoping that you can do. And the good news is, like Governor said, even if it's a matter of days for them to leave, to us, it's a matter of months to recover from it. It's going to take us a long time, month, maybe 3 to 6 months for small businesses to get back on our feet and learn how to walk again, let alone run. Right? We definitely need emergency stabilization grant. Try to help people pay their rent. My labor is 40% right now. This is no business in the United States of America can operate their business at 40%. It means we are below 5% or below zero in profit margins. So we need emergency stabilization. We need licensing relief, like what happened during COVID. The city of Minneapolis allowed us to postpone or even relief on taxes and paying the business licensing. It's a small ask, but too many small asks will add up to be a big thing. Short term, we really would like to see some property tax relief for the businesses that were affected, so landlords can pass some of those tax relief into rent concession for businesses so they can sustain being in business. Long term, I hope that we can sit down and talk honestly about tip credit for restaurants. This will make the big difference for us long term. I'm not talking about just 3 and 6 months. I'm talking about years to come in. We really need to sit down on the table and talk about the tip credit. We need to sit down and talk about the price transparency that came in 2025. And at the end, I really wanted to just get my thoughts out that we really need to support thousands of restaurants, supporting our employee who we pay payroll to them, we pay property tax, we pay sales tax. We support the small businesses that support us, support the community. I don't know if you guys know, but restaurant business, we make less than 10% profit margin. And independent restaurants spend most of that money in Minnesota. We're not the business in Chicago or New York, the corporate outside of the States. We are in this town, we operate in this town, and we spend our money in this town. So the help that the state and the city will do to us will make sure that we continue, exist, and prosper. Thank you.
Hi, Doran Clark, I'm the state senator here, and just to amplify really what Saeed's saying is, there's a short-term cash need, and I have a restaurant in, this is my district, and there's a restaurant in my district, Maya Cuisine, who's been shut down in this time of onslaught, and just yesterday they said, we need cash, and so they've asked everyone to, well, go buy some gift cards from them, so when this ends that you can go and shop, and this gets them over the hump. A neighbor of mine runs a landscaping company, and he shared that as he started to talk to his workers in December, they said, we're all legal. We can't come back and work for you this year. We are too scared. He has shut down his landscaping business. An old neighbor of mine shared, I came to this country 53 years ago from a third world country. I've never been more scared to be in anywhere in the world. That's what these workers are dealing with. That's what these leaders are dealing with. And it's an intentional choice by the president who said this is retribution. And so I ask that we make sure that we fill this hall back up and that we make sure that Maya Cuisine buy those gift cards so they can get over the hump, like Saeed has mentioned. So we're with you, and thank you so much for really putting a clear image on what this occupation looks like.
Thanks, Senator. Appreciate it. Well, you heard it, and we'll be able to take some questions. I would just say to all of you and to the Minnesotans who are listening that it's a false choice here to say this is the price that you have to pay to do immigration enforcement. This is the price you pay when you do immigration enforcement the exact wrong way, where it's not targeted, it's not humane, it's not focusing on what the purpose of it is. And to call this collateral damage is, I think, even an understatement. It is, you hear this, it is catastrophic, again, for very suspicious or suspect results that came out of this. Very difficult to get numbers, very difficult to say what they accomplished doing this, when you could accomplish the idea of making sure we're removing the worst of the worst who shouldn't be here. you can do that without all of this. And I think now, as we've stressed time and time again, this needs to end. I think that message has been sent very clearly to the administration. And I think at this point in time, I wish that they would reconsider because of what they heard about this or what our school superintendents have said or what people have said. But the fact of the matter is I don't necessarily believe that. What I do know is they are cratering in support, that they are incredibly unpopular of what they're doing to people in this moment, and that is changing their posture. And what we need in Minnesota is them to do what we've asked them to do. Get out of here, do these investigations, stop this retribution campaign, but also to make sure we are simultaneously repairing the damage, working together, hearing you loud and clear, seeing what we can do through the state, seeing legislative what we can do, and then what we can do collectively as people, what we've seen on the streets who have gone out there and stood up for their neighbors. We need to take that same energy once these folks are gone and move that energy back indoors, as we said, to start spending money in Minnesota, start going out, make a conscious effort where you might not have. And I think what's so great about this city, and I say this, I get the opportunity to travel everywhere in every corner, but there's something surprising and wonderful every day. A new business, new things popping up, a new American dream that we've always fostered. Don't crush those. Do not crush those. Do not take that out. And I'm just, again, I'm going to remain hopeful at this moment, trusting but verifying. Every indication I have is that this thing is winding up on the front end. But I want to assure all Minnesotans, I want to assure the business owners, we don't see this as the end. Our work just starts now to start to clean some of this up. With that, we'll take some questions.
Governor Walz, can you share any more specifics from your conversations with Tom Homan and Susie Walz about?
Yeah, as much as I can, and I'll be as candid as I can with all of you. I'm very careful with dealing with this administration because I think if you say things and if they don't like it, I think we've seen it, you know, the work that comes out. If the Venezuelan president hadn't danced, maybe I don't know how they think. So I'm being very careful. I'll let them make the announcements. We have been absolutely clear that they need to reduce these numbers back to the pre-surge level, which has been about 150. I have welcomed any help if they're sending experts dealing with fraud and tightening up systems. But as I said, none of those people are here and the existing ones are gone. So they've assured us that I think we are moving towards that. I have made clear that this surge staying here, there's absolutely no upside for the administration for them to be here. But what I worry about is we are on the edge of catastrophe every single day with these untrained agents out there, with the danger that's out there, with folks who want to cause disruptions. And so every day that the situation that's out on the street continues, it's a very dangerous one. So,
if you love, just to follow up.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have they followed through, in your opinion, with what they've said so far?
It's hard to say. It's hard for me to verify. I think, you know, Senator Clark, others have said this. The mood of the folks who are closest to this on the streets say no, that they're still out there. Our school superintendents say no, they're still here, they're still following us. My guess is that they have reduced the numbers, as they've said. I have no reason to not believe that Mr. Holman didn't reduce the 700. But all of you picked up very quickly. That still leaves 2,300 people on the streets, and that in itself is so destructive. I have to be candid with you. I think holding the state together and the focus and everything that's happening and all the grassroots leaders that are out there, they have days to get done with this. The patience is incredibly thin, and what that means is people are adhering to peaceful, resistance to this. They're honoring their First Amendment rights, but everybody's feeling this. I mean, this is catastrophic economic damage. Look, the president said it, and I'll hold him to this. He said, "This is my economy, I own it." You damn right you do. You damn right you own it in Minnesota because this is what you created. But with that being said, I think by next week they're going to be significant where all of us can measure that. And then again, I hope that we are pivoting correctly on this to the recovery phase that is going to be ongoing. So,
could you expand a little bit on, to follow up, you said that you expect within days, not weeks or months.
yeah.
Can you expand on that, because people are going to see.
Yeah, I'm going to say this. It would be my hope that Mr. Holman goes out before Friday and announces that this thing is done. and they're bringing her down, and they're bringing her down in days. That would be my expectation. Now, for all of you, the reason this is so difficult is it is very important for the President of the United States to believe he wins every golf tournament, believes he wins everything. He views this as a zero sum. I mean, to me, it strikes at the core of my soul, seeing this as a win-loss. This is a loss for everybody involved of what's happened here. With that being said, they've got to believe they accomplished what they were going to accomplish. It's my understanding they think they did, that they think they have accomplished that. Now, I don't know where the numbers are. You're doing some good research on this, but at this point in time, I think what they realize is 2,300, a tenth of the entire border control for the United States being in this city is probably not accomplishing very much more than they've already done. So it's my, Tom?
The House Homeland Security Committee in Washington had a hearing today and heard from the acting director of ICE. He says things have de-escalated here. They've gone back to their original mission of targeting enforcement and not roving through neighborhoods looking for people.
Did he say that in the hearing?
Yes. Have you seen evidence of that, or have you not seen a major de-escalation?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I started watching this hearing. Because look, we know the people who are there. This is fascinating because they've said they did everything right. They said that we're wrong about this. We made that case that why don't you target? Why don't you do things humanely? Why do you not cause this chaos? I would argue that fits into this, that there is a change happening. Seeing it on the ground is much more difficult for me to say. I get my input, Tom, from school superintendents who say they've still not seen that change. I think one of the big things here is the psychological damage that's been done to people. People are incredibly fearful, so they may not be out there. They may not be right in that neighborhood again, but we've got no proof they're not, and the unknown is almost worse than the known.
Just a quick follow-up. Tom Homan told me last week this surge could end within 2 weeks. That was as of Friday. Do you think now it
Yes.
might actually end sooner?
My hope is that he speaks this week and that this thing is done next week. Look, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's my. I've been telling they can't keep kicking this down the road, and I think some of it's operationally here. These folks go in rotations of 30 days. I think they're coming up on a 30-day rotation, and when this group rotates out, instead of having a new group rotate in, that's where they'll end it. Your guess is as good as mine on some of this because the collaboration and coordination. Now, I will say, since Mr. Holman has been here, we talk daily, we being our administration, folks at the Bureau of Prisons, our BCA is talking. There is much more communication happening with the state and locals, and so that leads me to believe that they are probably following through. So I think for Minnesotans, we wanted them out 10 weeks ago. This has gone on way too long. The damage is far too great, but I think we're probably on the verge of that. And
Governor,
yeah.
You're not the only elected official who's been struggling to get answers from the federal government. Why do you think it's taken so long to get this actual timeline from Tom Homan? And you're saying days until they leave. You're saying he could make the announcement soon. Can you just confirm that is what's going to happen? It seems like.
Well, I think it's hard. Look, you want to know my opinion on this? Depends what the mood the president is at night when they talk to him. If he's in an angry mood, I don't know. Don't talk to him after the Super Bowl halftime show. Wait till the next day, and then we get. It's true that we are getting responses based on emotion, and the problem that we have is no one knows what the chain of command is. This is where Tom Homan, I think, did change things. That there were multiple bosses on the ground, and I made this case that whether I believe Tom Homan or not, when he said he was going to do something, my biggest concern was I did not believe those agents on the ground were listening to Tom Homan because they were following a separate chain of command. I think what's changed now is that chain of command has tightened. I think, again, there's one person making the decisions in this, and that's Stephen Miller, and he's telling them what to do. That's coming on down. Once this thing became too politically difficult for them, I think there was a change, and that's what Tom Homan's job was. So look, if you're asking me, I'm skeptical, but in this case, I'm more hopeful than I've been that they're going to wind this thing down. We're still doing all the state government things. I need them to get out of here fast so that we can pivot and do our work to the cleanup of what's going to happen. So, yeah.
Commissioner, I know you said
Good.
it's going to take a while until you can get the numbers here for the economic impact, but would you just feel comfortable maybe giving some estimates? I know you said Minneapolis said
It's hard to put a number on it, and I suppose our Department of Revenue will eventually have something to say on this as well. But if the city of Minneapolis, let's just take their estimate of 100 million as a given, then you multiply that by St. Paul and the surrounding suburbs, and I'm a greater Minnesota guy. I see these activities in St. Cloud, Little Falls, Worthington, and beyond. And so surely the numbers do get very high. And whatever they may be, our job then is to do the best we can with the hand we've been dealt and try to mitigate those impacts for our businesses and our workers as fast as we can and get back to growing the economy for the sake of Minnesota and for the sake of the country. I think we should all be aligned on that it is good for the country, for Minnesota to thrive, and that's what we want to get back to.
Saeed, can you ask your question, Saeed?
Mr. Wadi had a specific ask here. Mr. Wadi asked if he could get a forbearance on the sales tax, if restaurants could get that. Governor, is that a possibility?
Well, I think right now we have to put everything on the table. We had this conversation. Some of us have the scars and battle scars of tip credit and different things. But these are things that the hospitality industry has brought up. I think it's appropriate now to put all of them on the table. There's things like credit card fees on sales tax and things. These are things the hospitality industry is bringing forward. Some of these predated this situation, but it's still all about, especially now that those have been exacerbated. So what I will say is that I think we have a responsibility to the business community across the state and to others to look at every single one of those proposals. What I'm able to do, if there's things I'm able to do through executive orders, through the executive branch, through deed, we're going to try and do those immediately, but they have the legislative process. The good news is we're going into session here shortly. We will have a budget forecast that comes out the end of February. I'm a little bit scared now in terms of that will be outdated, and because we base our budgeting in our legislative session based on the February forecast and the November forecast. The issue is will that be somewhat tainted by this, where we're not getting current enough numbers? But I do think, and I will make the pledge, we will look at every one of these proposals seriously to see what we can do, because some of these may be that they're things that people didn't want to do in the past, that recognize if we say don't do something around fees on the collection, we can be certain we're going to collect zero from businesses that are closed. So I think an argument is made here. If the state has to understand our revenue flows, but we have to recognize that the fallout of this, especially in the hospitality industry, could look like COVID in terms of the closures. So we have time for another one?
Commissioner,
Yeah.
could you speak a little bit more to the impacts in greater Minnesota and what you're hearing, manufacturing and beyond?
Yeah, well, it's partly anecdotal from me wanting to follow through on what we're asking others to do with Shop Local, Stand Together. And so I made plans to go out to dinner one night with Senator Eric Putnam, who represents that area as well, and he got a tip on where we should go to an immigrant-led restaurant, and I got there first and they were closed. And we don't know exactly why, but it seems reasonable to expect that this may have been why. And so then we went to the next place, which was excellent, but their numbers were way down. And so in addition, we have lots of folks reaching out to our office, to the governor's office as well, wanting to share their story. And in fact, that's how we ended up here today, because Patty reached out to the governor. And so we've been hearing heartbreaking stories, not just of dollars and cents, but of livelihoods that are interrupted. And then it even goes into, as I said, manufacturing, where I have some leaders telling me that they are worried about supply chain interruptions because at the height of all this activity, truck drivers indicated some fear about being in Minnesota without respect to their legal status, but just because of the color of their skin.
Closing thoughts, Governor, and then you were going to wrap there. We'll be back with more later this week.
Yeah, thank you. I'm going to make the push again to Minnesotans. People want to know how they're going to help. Everybody has a different way of focusing on this. Again, I speak to the Minnesotans who, the vast majority who say, yes, we need immigration reform, but it needs to be targeted, it needs to be smart, it needs to be humane. But understand what's happened here goes well beyond that, so get out and spend a little bit of money. I know it's a stressful time. It's hard to find any time to be somewhat joyful. It's hard because you know what's happening, you know the pain that people are feeling. But I do think you get both of those. If you get a chance to go out to eat and spend some money, it's good for you and it's good for the folks you're going to. And I would be remiss if I didn't. I think it's on right now. I'm going to go catch the update. The two Corys from Duluth are competing for gold in curling, and Minnesotans have every reason to be proud. I've never been prouder of this state during what's happened here. I've never been proud. Hockey's at 1?
1:15.
All right, so we're trying to keep track of them.
We're gonna wrap there.
So
Thanks, Governor.
we'll let you all, we'll keep you updated on this. And like I said, I think hopefully, and Claire, you can maybe correct, I think later in the week, we're going to try and get something to come back with a package of support. So, great. Thank you all.
Thank you so much.